Hello and welcome. In this video, I'll show you a sketchbook tour of this craft paper sketchbook. It's A5 size and it's made by Hahnemuehle, and it's a really great sketchbook. You get a lot of pages and it's relatively inexpensive. In this sketchbook tour, I won't go over all of the pages because there are too many, but I'll cover the rest of the pages in a different video. So I started this sketchbook in January 2016, and it took me about half a year to finish because there are so many pages. In this first page, I used the Sakura Jelly Roll Glaze gel pen, the transparent one. It has a shiny finish. In this page, I put down some acrylic paint and then decorated it inside and outside with the Sakura Jelly Roll Glaze. So the Glaze gel pen is a little bit 3D. You can feel it on the paper, and it's shiny and it's not opaque, so you can see through it a little bit. Here again with the Glaze gel pen. And again, the glaze. So first I doodled and then I colored in. And at this point, I think I realized that the gel pen runs out really fast. The other Sakuras that aren't 3D, like the Classic or the Moonlight, they don't run out as fast. So that's why I didn't do too many doodles with so much gel pen in this sketchbook. Here I put down a few strips of washi tape and doodled inside each one and around on the rest of the page. Here I experimented with a brush pen, which allows you to get thick and thin lines. Then I went back to Technical pen, and this is the Sakura Jelly Roll Souffle. So it's also sort of 3D. It dries to a matte finish and the colors are more pastel, and it is opaque. Here's another doodle with the glaze. These are some stamps that I got for my niece. Here's a doodle using the glaze and the souffle and the Technical pen. I really like this one. It's a nice pattern, I think, both as an all-over pattern and also if you would just take clumps of it and use it, for example, for fabric. This one I remember a lot of people liked on Instagram. Maybe people just like colorful things. What I did here was I used Posca paint markers. I first laid down the different colors and I needed to go over each color at least once. And then I blocked in the borders with black and doodled over it. Here's a nice bridge with the glaze and the Technical pen for the black. This is a page I first colored with gold acrylic paint. So I was using the craft paper to experiment with different paints and different mediums. Then I doodled over it with a black Technical pen. And here's a page where I wrote a message to myself. It's okay to make mistakes. I remember when I made this one, I was feeling pretty happy and pretty confident with my experimentation with doodling and with the markers and pens. And that kind of confidence, for me, it comes and goes. Here's a doodle just with a Technical pen, and you can see that I experimented with different line thicknesses. I think this is an 0.5mm Technical pen, and the thicker lines are obviously not made using a thicker pen, but rather just filling in the area with the 0.5 probably. Here I experimented with laying down some acrylic paint. This is paint that was left over from a craft session with my niece, and then I doodled over the acrylic using a dip pen and blue ink. And I experimented with writing all sorts of words and letters in different shapes, and then doodling around the rest. Here again, I laid down some leftover paint. Then I noticed that the shapes reminded me a little bit of really big flowers, so I doodled over it in a way that accentuates that it looks like flowers, using a dip pen and white ink. Here I experimented using a Technical pen that was thicker. I think this is the 1mm Technical pen, and this is the 0.3, which I don't use as much because it's very scratchy. And then I colored around it using the Posca paint marker. The moisture of the paint marker lifts the fibers of the paper and causes the paper to start coming apart and become fuzzy. And I was always looking for ways to overcome that. Here's another doodle with thicker and thinner lines and areas that are blocked in with ink. The leaves here are colored with the Posca paint marker, and then I doodled over them using a Technical pen and the Sakura Glaze gel pens. So you can see that I'm trying to incorporate color together with a Technical pen in all sorts of ways. Here at first I made these small shapes using the Posca paint markers, and then I doodled around them, in them, and on the page using a technical pen. Here I scribbled with the various colors of the paint marker, and then I wrote this word over the scribbles and doodled around the word. This one was a little bit tricky to make because I had to go over the red and the blue more than once in order to get the color to be a block of color and a uniform color. So it was tricky not to go over the lines. And then it was tricky to block in the borders around each color. Here's another scribbly one, experimenting with a paint marker. I can feel that the paper is sort of rough, like the paint marker picked up pieces of the paper. Here's a doodle that I didn't finish for some reason. Here's another one where I started with the paint marker. I made all of these shapes and then I blocked in using a technical pen in black around and in each one. I can really feel how rough the paper is because of the paint marker. Here are some squares in technical pen and the Glaze Jelly Roll gel pen. Another experiment with the paint marker. And this one is made using a dip pen and blue ink. You can see the line variation that you can get with the dip pen. Here you can see two doodles where there's sort of like a center shape or a circular shape and then some shapes growing around it. So here this is like the center and then some shapes growing around it. And you'll see later on that I tried to break this pattern of having like a seed and then growing around it, but rather different layouts for the page. For example, here it's more like mountains that are layered on top of each other. This is a piece of watercolor paper. First I made the watercolor squares and then I doodled over it with white ink and a dip pen. And I noticed that the white gel pen doesn't look as good as the white ink and the dip pen. This was a page I made as part of a prompt on Instagram, and the prompt was fat brush. So I made this with a technical pen as if I had a fat brush that drew this mark. Here again, you can see that there's this center and then the doodle grows out of the center. And I felt that when I do that, when I have a center and then things growing out of the center, the doodles that I make look the same to me. So I wanted to break that mold and sort of try something else. And up till today, I'm still trying to figure out how to lay out the doodle on the page to make it more interesting. Here again, there's the center, there's the acrylic background, and then there's the center, and it grows out of the center, but it doesn't fill the whole page. Here is a way to structure the doodle where there are like stripes, and then they keep growing. And this kind of doodle takes more discipline for me because I've predetermined the shapes that I want to use, and I don't go off on a tangent. Here I used 3 different inks, the technical pen for the black and the dip pen for the white and the blue. And I kind of like this. This is a different layout where you have like patches of flowery shapes to cover the page. Here I put circles in the paint marker and then doodled around that. And here I was having fun with a hole punch that makes flower shapes, butterflies, and hearts, which of course I got from my niece. And then I put glue on the page, then put these down, and then put glue over that. And I had so much fun with that that I made another page using black paper. Here's another doodle where again, you have the center and the doodle grows out of the center, and then these sort of mountain sort of shapes that I first colored in with the paint marker. So I was experimenting with making the doodle more interesting and also with incorporating color together with the black lines. This was again for a prompt on Instagram, or 2 prompts. It was, I think, dots and also mismatched. Here I experimented with an acrylic background and doodling over it, but not so much, like more of a minimalistic doodle where I add just a few accents of doodle and not overwhelm the page with lines. Here's another doodle where I experimented with some dots and with making some of them smaller and some of them larger. I remember that I made these pages after a little while of feeling uninspired to doodle, and I guess they're kind of nice. They're graphic, simplified, high contrast doodles. And I like the way that these are laid out, like they're tumbling around the page, how you could keep growing this out and making it into a larger pattern, like a repeat pattern. Here's another one that looks similar, sort of a graphic, repetitive, geometric doodle. This one I actually recorded a time-lapse of myself making, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. This one was a really cool experiment with 2 opaque markers. So you have the black, which is opaque, and this blue, which is the souffle, which is opaque. So it's nice that you can use the black on the blue and the blue on the black. Here I experimented with sort of drawing rectangles in the beginning and then filling each one with different colors and different shapes. Here I used some acrylic paint and doodled over that. And this one I think is a really interesting layout because I used arcs to fill in the space. Here's another one where I used 3 opaque colors. So the white is dip pen and ink, the black is technical pen, and the blue is the souffle gel pen. So you can see how the blue goes over the black white goes over the black goes over the white because they're all opaque. So it was really fun to experiment with that. Here I used a softer line using a Faber-Castell Pitt artist pen, which is just like a marker or a brush pen, but like a child's marker. Here's another one with 3 opaque colors, similar design. And this one I remember I was feeling uninspired and I cut up some paper. It's just, writing paper with a grid on it and pasted it down, then doodled in each one and then doodled around it. I got some encouragement on Instagram for it, so my enthusiasm picked back up after this one. This is a page where I went completely overboard with glitter and glue, obviously, to keep the glitter down. Glitter that I got from my niece, obviously, and all kinds of markers and inks. These I also recorded a time lapse of myself doing. It was really interesting how I doodle differently when I'm recording myself. These also were done while recording a time lapse of myself doodling them, and these ones also. Here I tried more simplified shapes. Here I used patches of the paint marker and then doodled in each one using the souffle gel pens. I kept going with that, with more graphic shapes, sort of patches, and doodling inside each one. So I think we'll stop here at about midpoint in the sketchbook. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.